Hello, listeners. I'm Michael Statham, and on this week's Football-Oranje podcast, I'm with James Rowe and Michael Bell. We're going to preview the new Eredivisie season and answer your questions about all the teams involved. We're on YouTube, SoundCloud, and iTunes. Enjoy. We should begin with the women's team winning Euro 2017. James, Michael, did you watch the match? What did you make of it?
I thought the game in itself was a great advert for football, not just women's football, but actual football. It was end-to-end first half. Incredible game in the first half. Second half, I think Netherlands dominated and then fully deserved the win in the end. I think that it's the front three, Medema, van der Sanden and Martens, they were excellent throughout the whole tournament, and they turned up in the final just when it mattered, and fully deserved. I think they were the best team in the tournament. They played the best football. They played the Dutch way. They played total football. They played the way the men should be playing. They showed them how it's done, and it's just absolutely amazing for the country. Women's football has not been that big in the Netherlands, but it seems to be getting bigger and bigger every year. Under 17s, under 19s are doing really well in recent years, and now the actual full teams, one of the best in the world now. And it can only grow and grow further. And I think 10,000 fans turned up for the Orange Parade today, and the party's going to be through the streets. I think this will have an impact in the country the same way that the 1988 Euro for the men's did. I think the game's just going to grow and grow with women in the Netherlands, and it's great to see.
Yeah, it's something to be proud of, isn't it? James, do you think it will make a big impact within the country? Do you think it's going to be something to hit off with a lot of fans, maybe, to gather some more interest in the sport?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I agree with Mike's initial comments. I think they've been fantastic throughout the tournament. The way the country has got behind them is also has been a sight to see. 30,000 people in the stadium in Enschede today for the final. Everybody working towards wanting them to win it. The players as well, Miedema and Lieke Martens in particular, who won Player of the Tournament. They've been absolutely fantastic. But the whole team effort, and even with the manager Sarina Wiegman, with the comments of positivity, working towards a goal and achieving it, I think it's going to have a knock-on effect. It gives the country a well-timed boost in terms of sport, and I agree with Mike. The current men's national team could learn a lot from the way that this women's side has conducted themselves at a major tournament.
Yeah, it's certainly good news in that respect. We have to also talk about the news this week involving Feyenoord against Vitesse in the Johan Cruyff trial. Who watched the match? Do you think it was a good start to the season? Now we've got football back, and did Feyenoord impress you as title winners?
I think Feyenoord was solid going into the game, and you can see the confidence flowing through them by having won yesterday their third trophy in 15 months. With the KNVB Cup, the league title last season, and now the Johan Cruyff. I think Vitesse did very well when they went 1-0 down to come back and to fight well, and Henk Vreese even commended that. But I think Feyenoord will only get better as the season goes on. I mean, this is a curtain raiser last night, which has only been played for 22 seasons, I think, and. Yeah, it's a traditional curtain raiser, and penalties is a lottery, as we all know. But you can see that the way that Brad Jones saved the penalties in a convincing way, and the confidence that Feyenoord had going into the penalty series, that they were worthy winners in that respect, and it sets them up for a very interesting opening season game against FC Twente next weekend.
Yeah. I thought Feyenoord's new signings did well. Throughout the game, I thought Haps was positive at left back. Boychus coming back, he set up the opening goal. I just thought that Vitesse came into the game in the second half, and I think Mataras is going to be a great signing for them going forward. I think he's going to get goals. He's going to unsettle defenders in the Eredivisie, and I think Vitesse are in for a good season. They had a lot of options on the bench, all the Chelsea loanees. I'm quite glad that the way they started it was only one of the Chelsea loanees came into the starting lineup, and the team just looks a lot more structured than it did last year with Linz and Bruins, Matavs, Castaños is going to come in there as well. I think Vitesse have got a really good squad for the season, and they were unlucky as they went to penalties, and it's just a lottery, and Brad Jones was one in the end. It was the hero.
I think we'll definitely be talking more about Vitesse later. For Feyenoord, however, so these new signings are coming in, aren't they? And they seem to be settling in quite well. Boetius is going back to a team he knows very well, and you've got Haps, Sint-Just, Amrabat. They all know the setting. They all came from Dutch teams, so it seems like signings so you got square pegs into square holes. It's very straightforward signings. It all makes sense. But Gareth here has sent a question on Twitter, and he asks, how do you think Feyenoord will fare this coming season, having lost some of a title-winning side? Because they have lost some key cogs, haven't they? What do you think, James?
I agree. They have lost Alien. They have lost Derek Hout, who was spearheading the title campaign. But I think I agree with your comments. Buying sensibly, square pegs in square holes, knowing the targets they want, identifying them quickly and getting them for a decent price. It shows how Feyenoord have matured as a club. It wasn't so long ago that they were in financial trouble. They were having to rely on their youth products and their youth policy because they had no other choice. The money wasn't there to invest in the way they would have wanted. And now they've matured as a club where they're in the position to target the players they want and more importantly, get them over the line. I think they're building their squad adequately, and I think they're going to push on from last season. I think they'll have a good year. I think they will become champion this coming season. And in Europe, it depends on the group they will face, but I think the club can be really pleased at the way they've matured in the transfer market, and especially the way they've identified their targets.
I actually think that Feyenoord's summer work has made them a stronger side going into the season. Quite not that big a loss. You consider that he scored some important goals towards the end of the campaign, but he was an experienced head. But if you bring in Van Persie, who they're still trying to sign, and that could still happen before the end, that's sort of like for like there as well. And Elia's gone, but Boetius has come in. That's a good stand-in. They've got Bergwijn permanently, and they've got Basakoglu coming from the bench. The midfield's a lot stronger now, with Amrabat playing back up to El Amadi and Vilhena. And I think keeping a hold of them two in midfield, that was the most important thing. And if you're looking at the back, they have lost Congolo and Karsdorp, but even Kevin Dykes, Sint-Just, they're just great signings going forward. And Haps, as I said, was impressive in the game on Saturday. So I think going forward, Feyenoord might look stronger this season. And I agree with James that they're looking set for another championship, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I personally think that maybe they won't have enough on the continental stage, but that goes for quite a few Dutch teams as it happens at the moment. But I think on the league stage it could certainly be a successful campaign for them. It's, in my opinion, going to be between Feyenoord and Ajax for the title. So James, you think Feyenoord are going to pip the rest for the title? What do you think, Michael? Are you confident that Feyenoord are going to do it again?
I think they have the strongest squad. I think Ajax, as you say, are going to be the most competitive team going for the title. I think it's going to be very close going to the end, but you can just see Feyenoord nipping it at the end.
What about Ajax then? So we probably saw them, or James, you at the stadium against Nice. Ajax were knocked out of the Champions League thanks to a 2-2 draw, meaning 3-3 in aggregate and out on away goals. How was it inside the stadium, James? I know that when I watched the match, certainly from my point of view, Ajax could have won by 3 or 4, but didn't take their chances and got hit by the sucker punch, and now they're facing Europa League football again.
Yes, before the game there was a tribute to Abdelhak Nouri with a video with his special moments and the encouragement that the club are giving him and his family. The captain, Joel Feltman, said after the match that they was aware that a big banner would be revealed and that he was in the minds of the players. But as regards to the actual game, the thing that surprised me in the first 25 minutes watching it live inside the stadium was the warning signs were there. All of the through balls that were being played by the Nice midfielders were accurate in terms of creating space, running off space, and they surprised Ajax a little bit. And that for me was a warning sign which wasn't really picked up. They did well to get back into the game and to lead 2-1, and the game was becoming more and more tense. But the danger for Nice to launch a counter-attack was always there, and that's what happened 10 minutes before the end of the match. When the goal went in, and to make it 2-2, it was an awful lot of frustration around the stadium, coming so far and getting so close. But I also have to credit Nice. I thought Nice were a very, very good side that played very well. In particular, their defenders, Maxime Le Marchand and Arnaud Souquet. I thought them two in particular were really, really good. You could say that Ajax have maybe found their level in the Europa League again, having reached the final last season. But the game against Rosenborg, the first game is in Amsterdam and the second leg is in Trondheim. So that provides maybe a stern test. But Rosenborg was the most difficult team they could have faced, and they faced them. But the most important thing for them is to get a positive result in the first leg in Amsterdam.
Yeah, certainly. But when I was watching the match, I found that Ajax could have easily put the chances away, done what it did to Lyon the previous season in the Europa League in the semi-final, where they won 4-1 at home. It was really confident. There was really intense play. But a question from Cam here asks, it appears Ajax is struggling on the defensive side. Why is that? More of a communication issue? Now, just before I hand over to Michael, I just want to point out that I think it was a style of play issue, and that the way that Ajax play means that they commit so many men forward, and there's such a high line that when Nice can get in behind, there's lots of space to exploit. And if they can get that chance and take it, then it's an unlucky away goal. But that's the thing. This style of play, is it risky in the way that it pushes the luck to concede these goals, or is it something else? Is it more of an issue, for example, with Jar Veltman, which fans love to always criticise?
I think in watching the game, you have to say there's a bit of naivety from Ajax. They were 2-1 up, they were heading through, and they didn't decide to sit back and take the win. They decided to keep going for it. Even the substitutions, Kaiser took off Kluivert, who was by far Ajax's best player on the night, and put on Frankie de Jong. It's a strange, substitution. It's a central midfielder for right winger, left to right wing exposed. The goal came from that way, a long ball. Veltman missed the header, and then the left back bombs on, and he's one that ends up scoring. If you're going to take off your winger, you put on a defender. You're missing that, just that bit of experience at the back that can close down games. And I think if you looked at the goal, there's about 3 or 4 times where it could have been cleared. I think it's De Ligt at the back, and he kind of scuffs his clearance, and it goes straight to Nice player. They break into the ball. It's a nice little clever, cut back from I think it's Seri, but it's the left back just doesn't get tracked, and he's the one that's there. I think it's a young defence. They've got to learn these things. Joe Veltman is now the captain. He's got to take a bit of responsibility. I think Kaiser's got to have a bit more game management going forward in these big European teams that press Ajax or have the quality to beat Ajax, except for the top 3. But in Europe, these teams are all strong going forward. Nice is one of the best sides in France last year, and it's just after this 2-1, Ajax really should have thought, right, let's shut this game down. But they didn't. They tried to go for it, and they got hit by a sucker punch. I think that's just naivety going forward.
We have a question here about these European adventures from Dutch teams, and talks about how we should expect failure this season from Vitesse Feyenoord Utrecht due to the lack of experience they have in the Champions League and Europa League. Are there any chances this season also for more glory, as like last season where we saw Ajax reach the Europa League final? I'd like to start by pointing out that I think Feyenoord and Vitesse may have a confident seasons both in Europe. Utrecht got a tough challenge against Zenit St. Petersburg to reach the Europa League group stage, but final in De Kuip. But I think that's going to offer some exciting nights for Dutch teams. But the problem is, Feyenoord and Vitesse will both be seeded, well, very likely to be seeded fourth in their respective Champions League and Europa League group stages. What do you two think? Do you think that with Ajax as well, do you think there's any chance of some success this season for Dutch teams? Of course, we can't expect that from PSV now after they were knocked out the other day.
I think to start with FC Utrecht, they are facing the toughest opponent they could have faced, especially with the second leg in Russia. That's just a really, really unlucky draw for them. And I think they're going to try hard, but I think the class of Zenit St. Petersburg is going to show in that particular game. To move on to Vitesse, they will be playing in Europe for, I think, the first time in a long, long time. They will be in pot 4, that's highly likely. Their potential opponents could be Atalanta, Arsenal, Real Sociedad. So they may well come up against very, very good teams in the group phase. It'll be interesting to see how they deal with it. I'm not entirely sure if home advantage is going to work for them, with the Gelderdoom having been reduced in capacity in recent years. To move on to Ajax, the game against Rosenborg is going to be difficult, but over 2 legs they should win. They've managed to win through to previous rounds of the Europa League against Schalke and Lyon with their fantastic home display. So you would hope that they come out of the blocks against Rosenborg in the first leg. I agree with you, Michael. I think the best hopes rest on Feyenoord with their home advantage. It's feasible, as I said on the pod before, they could face a group with Spartak Moscow, Tottenham and Porto. That could very well be feasible for them. I think they will be the team the most that will make home advantage pay. But I think if we were choosing a team who will go the furthest, who will represent the Netherlands the best, then I agree with you, Michael. I believe it will be Feyenoord this season.
What do you think, Mike?
I would agree. I think Feyenoord in Europe at home is strong. You have to look at Europa League campaign a couple of years ago where they beat Roma. I think on their day at home they can beat anybody, except for maybe the Barcelona, Real Madrid. So it really just depends on who they draw. I think Dutch teams have been quite unlucky in their draws so far this season. Ajax getting Nice, and Ajax getting Rosenborg. These are the toughest sides they could have faced in these draws. Utrecht getting Zenit. Zenit have just hammered Spartak Moscow today. I mean, you can't really see Utrecht doing anything against them, so I think they'll be out. But I think Vitesse, as I said, they've made some good signings, and they could be a surprise in Europe this season. I think everybody was surprised by Ajax getting to the final last year, and I don't think we should just write off all these Dutch teams so far. I think football in Europe's getting a lot stronger, and the teams are a lot closer now. It just depends on the day and how they play. I think Ajax can go far in the Europa League again. I think Feyenoord, if they don't scrape through into second, they can definitely get to third, and then they drop into Europa League, and they can go far in that tournament as well. They've got a strong squad, same with Ajax. Vitesse are stronger than they are. I just think it's Utrecht are the one that's going to miss out.
Okay. Well, one team we definitely were watching Europe this season is PSV. It was an appalling performance again against Croatians Osijek to go out 2-0 on aggregate. But the concerns are not just for not playing Europe for the first time in 43 years. They also are looking like they will have a difficult campaign in the Eredivisie. All three of us seem to have already said that it could be a 2-horse race between Feyenoord and Ajax. But do you think PSV have a chance still of being within the reckoning for the title? Or do you think that that being in the top 3, that place is even at threat from the likes of Vitesse and AZ? What do you think?
I think it depends on how they start, personally. Their first game is at home to AZ. I think the arrogance before the match against Osijek at home was something to behold. It was just a case of, we'll get through this and then it's already on to the next one. I think the club is in shock that they won't be playing European football for the first time in 43 years, and I think you'll see as a consequence the landscape changing a little bit. It's only today where David Philippa is linked with a move to Brighton and Hove Albion in England. I stated on the pod back in May, even though it was quite premature, that this would be Koku's last season in Eindhoven. And even before the season is started, that seems like an extremely solid prediction. I don't think they flexed their muscles in the transfer market as much as they wanted to. You could say that's due to the approach of not identifying the targets quick enough, and also the approach of Koku to get those deals over the line. I think it is admirable that he's promoted 3 youth team prospects to the first team squad, but I think he did that due to them not getting the targets they wanted, or not even showing the correct approach in terms of speed and accuracy to get those deals identified and get them over the line. I think it's going to be a long season in Eindhoven because they only have the league title and the cup to go for, and depending on how they start, I think that will dictate how things will go for them as the season goes on.
I think it's very worrying times at the moment in Eindhoven. They couldn't have had a worse start to the season. There's no money now, so they can't sign anyone. Brands has already said in the past couple of days that they're going to probably have to sell people because they're expecting a windfall from getting to the Europa League, and they're counting on that. So that's why you're going to see David Proper leave. There's rumours today, he played a friendly today, they drew 0-0 at Augsburg, and Luke de Jong wasn't there even though he was fit. There's links of him going to Germany. I don't personally see that as a bad deal. I think getting rid of de Jong right now is probably the best thing that PSV can do, because up front they just don't look good enough to challenge the top two. I mean, de Jong just couldn't finish anything last year. Then you got Olcadia coming in, he gets his chance, his big chance. He's been saying all along he's not a winger, he wants to play for the middle. He gets his chance on Thursday, and then he absolutely does not. He misses 4 or 5 chances, comes out afterwards and says he wasn't motivated. That's even it's down to the management or the players. I mean, I know Kadia is trying to forward his music career at the moment, so maybe he seems to have given up of becoming a top footballer, and he wants to concentrate on his music career. And then that comes down to Koku to try and get these players that want to play for the club and want to succeed, to promote more youngsters. A couple of years ago, when he first brought up Memphis Depay, they had a year where they didn't challenge, and then they won 2 titles in a row. So maybe this is just a transition there. They need to get rid of these players who don't want to play anymore. Proper's going, de Jong's going, phase out players like Bukaria, give Bergwijn, give Lammers, give Rosario, Rams, or Armites the spine of the team going forward, and then maybe next season, and these youngsters after a year in the Eredivisie, they'll be strong enough to challenge Ajax and Feyenoord. But I just think right now that it's just a shambles. Like, the team just doesn't look like they care, or that they can create anything, that they can score at all. This Croatian side to finish 4th in the table last season, and PSV over 2 legs only managed something like 3 shots on target. It's just not good enough.
Yeah, and we had a question from David about this as well. He said, I was stunned at your optimism for PSV this season, obviously relating to a previous podcast, and surely their inept efforts against Aussie ex-Jets, they'll struggle this season. And I agree with him. I think they will struggle this season. And I'm surprised, actually, that players like Van Hinkel want to sign for the club. For certain players, such as Lozano, it was a chance to play in Europe. But Van Hinkel is coming back to a club which is getting worse every season. It's the quality is reducing drastically. Perhaps a chance to be a captain was a massive pull for him. But with players like Zut as well are still at the club, which again surprises me. The club seems to be going backwards, and it's all under the reins of Koku, who persuaded and promised so much in his first season by reaching the Champions League last 16, nearly the quarterfinals, and it's all just gone backwards. And I actually think that their place within the top 3 is in threat. I've written down some predictions actually this season for the table, and I do have PSV sitting in fourth. I think Vitesse have got a very strong squad. It's easy to say, isn't it, that their heads will be turned by the Europa League, but they held their own against Feyenoord in the final yesterday, which they only lost out on penalties. I think that they've got a good squad. If they can get hold of Luke Castagnos for $2.5 million, that is it's a very ambitious signing because of the money they're paying for a player. That's unheard of, actually, for a team below the top three to be paying nowadays. And to see them signing Castagnos to play, perhaps not alongside Tim Matavs, but to be switched quite a lot between the two, because they're paying for two senior strikers to be rotated. It's a sign of a good, strong squad. And actually, if they can't qualify through the Europa League, it's only 6 matches out of their season. They're not going to be exactly exhausted by these matches, and I think they can go on to have a very good campaign. They are better than the likes of RZ, Utrecht, Heerenveen, and I think that they can actually maybe pit PSV to third spot if PSV are going to have such an awful season. What do you two think? Do you think there are any challenges for top three?
I think to elaborate on your point about PSV, I think in the case of Van Ginkel, I think it's comfortable. It's comfortable to return to the homeland. It's comfortable to return to one of the biggest clubs in that country and play regularly. I don't think with his loan spells at Milan and Stoke that he was looking at the direction of a club. I think it was for him just returning to the Netherlands and finding stability again. I think Cocu has rested on his laurels. I think, as you both rightly say, he showed progress in almost reaching the Champions League quarter-finals. But I think he's rested on his laurels. I don't think he's been able to bring anything different. I don't think he's been able to necessarily motivate or push on as a manager in motivating his team to move forward. To answer your question about potential teams making a surprise, I do agree that Vitesse have brought extremely well. I think they've replaced Ricky van Wolfswinkel really well to buy two very good strikers who will score goals to fill that void. They have a chance of pushing on from last season. I'm not entirely sure they might finish third. They do have a chance. I think to look a little bit further down. We mentioned on the pod before. I can't see. I was at Alkmaar pushing on it. My tips for a good season are NAC Breda, Groningen, and VVV Venlo. Not so much to break the heavy heights of maybe even the top 8 or the top 10, but to have a stable. I predict that all three will have stable seasons where they manage to play good football, make an impression, make a positive impression. And I'd also tip all three for a potential cup run to the latter stages, maybe.
I actually think there's quite negativity around the club at the moment, and yes, John van den Brom's not maybe the man that everyone wants in charge anymore, but I actually think AZ are in for a good season. I can see them coming fourth, just based on, I've watched them a few times in pre-season, and their actually starting squad now is a lot stronger than it was last season. And they've got these exciting youngsters coming into the side like Calvin Stengs, Gus Till, Vindal, Uyan, and the weak links from last year. Tim Krul was a big weak link in goal. He's now gone. Bezos come in. He's done really well in pre-season. I saw him hammer Malaga 3-0. I saw him beat Udinese yesterday. I mean, these are good results against good teams in pre-season. Whereas you look at FC20 who are getting hammered every week by teams like Bristol City. And I think AZ, they've got Weghorst, they've got Friday up front, they can score goals, they've got exciting talents, and I think they will actually push for fourth, and I think it'll be between them and Vitesse for those 4th and 5th spots. PSV I think was great third, but you know, Utrecht and Groningen to round off the top 6. I think Utrecht are weaker than they were last year. I can't see them getting fourth again. But you know, surprise teams, I think VVV, yeah, definitely. They've got some good players, some good young talent. NEC have got a lot of Manchester City, loanees coming in. I think it's going to be interesting when NAC come up against Vitesse, because it'd be like Chelsea versus Manchester City in the future, because they've got so many 1-E's at the moment. But challenging wise, I think it's got to be the same top three as it usually is, and then I think it'll be AZ and Vitesse, the best two after that.
It's an interesting point about AZ, because I think you're right with Stengs, Till, Vindal, Ovejan, that these youngsters are very good. But the thing is, when you watched them at the end of last season, they were appalling, and the quality at times was very low, and the defence was awful. But yeah, things have been replaced, and there's some good pre-season results, to be fair. I actually have Heracles to come 6th, because I think that the style of play under Jan Stegemann means they'll win a lot of games, and yes, also lose a lot of games, but there'll be a low amount of draws, and wins get you more points, and I think that will help them push up the table quite a lot. But yeah, I expect to come a little bit lower. I don't think they're going to have the same force as last season. And just one final point about teams that did well last season. Twente, yeah, I was at the game when they lost 2-0 to Bristol City, and Twente could have lost 5 or 6-0 that evening. It was dreadful. They could barely put a pass together up front. They had an issue where they kept going back to front from the defence. That they seemed to run out of ideas in midfield, and ended up going back to front. Except the long balls wouldn't go to 6'5" Kvasina. They'd end up going to Tip Tambora, who's he's definitely less than 6 foot. I can definitely tell you that much. And balls ended up going to the wrong men. There were no through balls attempted for Bora, who's a quick, pacey striker. But in defence, the only man who really looked up to it was Stefan Teska, the centre-back. 26 years of age, he's back from cancer, and he's loving his football, but the men around him don't seem to be as adept at defending as he is, because as the game started, a lot of the players were looking around frantically thinking, whoa, what is this? They're not used to the English style of football, and it was very quick, very physical, and they lost a lot of aerial duels. The post was hit, the bar was hit, there was a goal ruled off for offside. Twente were appalling, and I can only think of one chance of note that went just wide. It wasn't a good evening for them. I don't think it'll be a good season for them, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're in the bottom half, perhaps even flirting with relegation at times. Despite Rene Harker's best efforts, it's not his fault, but as a club can't qualify for Europe for a while, it's going to be difficult to attract the kind of signings that he wants. And yeah, I think the best hope this season is that they can bring through the likes of Fredrik Jansen, Jari Osterwijk, and hopefully make a profit in some of the signings that they got on free transfers. German midfielder Lockhart, he's only 18, but if he plays a lot of games, maybe he has some resaleability. But no, I don't think they'll struggle, but I have gone with a bottom 3 of Roda at bottom, Sparta 17th, and ADO Den Haag in 16th. Michael, who do you think will struggle this season?
I've got the same for you as Roda bottom. They've not signed anyone I've not that I think is going to save them. I think they're in for another terrible season. 17th I've gone for Excelsior. I know every year they get doubted, and every year they scrape it in the end, and they manage to stay up with the skin of teeth. But I think the teams coming up to the division are stronger now. NSA and the VVV, I think they'll survive. I think it'll be Excelsior's time to get knocked into that 17th spot. I've got Sparta in 16th. They've got some very, very good young talents coming through in Sparta, but just wherever they have anyone up front that's actually going to score the goals to keep them in the division. I know Pogba's there, and he'll probably be the first choice striker, but I can't see him scoring enough to save them from the bottom 4. Then if anyone else is going to get dragged into it, will be the Film Tways, the NACs. But I actually think ADO Den Haag will be alright this season. I think they've signed a striker from Hearts, probably replace Mike Havner, but they've actually got 2 very good young strikers in Dennis van der Heijden and Delano Edan. Delano Edan was part of the under-17 Euros earlier this summer, and he's actually been scoring quite a lot of goals so far in pre-season. I think he's an exciting little prospect up front for them. I can actually see them finishing comfortably mid-table.
That's interesting. What do you think, James?
To go back on your point of FC Twente, when I spoke to Jeroen van der Lele back in March this year, he explained to me about the way the club has had to go about their business with loan signings and the youth team, and that they're going to have to continue in that direction in the coming seasons due to being banned from not playing in Europe. I agree with you, Michael. I don't think FC Twente will have a very good season, but I also think they won't also be in trouble for getting relegated. I think they'll be somewhere in between the two. And my bottom three is Sparta Rotterdam to finish bottom, Rode JC to finish 17th, and Excelsior Rotterdam to finish 16th. I think with Sparta Rotterdam, I agree with you both. There's not much of a goal threat there. To lose two very good defenders, Dumfries to Heerenveen and Van Drongelen to HSV Hamburg, is a big blow. I think Sparta Rotterdam were also very lucky that on the last day of the season they faced Go Ahead Eagles, who were the weakest team in the division. If they would have faced perhaps another team who was stronger, they may well have ended up participating in the relegation playoffs, and who knows how that would have gone. So my bottom three is that. I think Excelsior and Excelsior Rotterdam and Rode JC for the relegation playoffs, and that is a lottery depending on who they play, but my team to finish bottom this season will be Sparta Rotterdam.
Interesting. I thought that some teams this season that may surprise. All three of us seem to be quite confident that NAC Breda will be fine, and I popped them in 10th place in my table predictions. Another team that I think might be alright is Willem II. Mainly because of the signings of Chidivea and Daniel Crowley. They're both players that play well at Go Ahead Eagles and fit in very well with the Dutch style of play, and maybe in a more solid outfit such as Willem II that they might actually flourish. With Frans Sol up front as well, he might provide some goals to finish mid-table. James, I know you were quite a big fan of VVV, I mean in particular Murray Stein. Is this developing a mini fetish for Murray Stein, or I know you're a big fan of him.
No, it's respect first and foremost.
Yeah.
I respect what he's done at ADO Den Haag, and the title-winning squad that finished with 80 points last season has been kept together with Ralph Sanchez and Clint Leemans and Vito van Krooij. I think they'll be fine. I wrote a piece on the site today about the second coming of Murray Stein taking VVV Venlo to the Eredivisie after 4-year absence. I think he was extremely unlucky to lose his job at ADO Den Haag. I know they were bottom and circumstances dictated, but before that season they finished 9th, and the season before that they finished. They escaped the relegation zone by 1 point. I thought it was very unlucky. I think VVV Venlo will be fine. I think their home advantage will see a few strange results, or not strange results, but a few eyebrow-raising results as the season goes on. I agree with you both with NAC Breda. I think that's primarily due to the quality that the manager Stijn Verheven has. You could see before the promotion playoffs even started the will of the man and the confidence in the squad that he had to win the promotion playoffs, which they did. And I think it would be good for the league as well to have newcomers staying up without the threat of relegation. I think that would be good for the Eredivisie long term.
I think that the home advantage for NAC Breda in their games at home, obviously, it's going to make a big difference for their form, getting them some extra wins maybe they didn't expect to get them, purely because of the atmosphere that they'll bring back to Eredivisie. It's going to be great to have them back around, I think. I guess as a sort of final point about this season, we've talked about surprises and all that. Who do you think are going to be the top goal scorers this season? Who do you think is going to be up there, bagging the goals every week, perhaps for the tipsters out there? Who do you think is going to be reliable?
My first name on that list would be Vito van Krooij. His reputation is very solid. Scored and made goals last season for the title-winning side. may well not be the first name which springs to mind, but I think he'll be banging in the goals for VVV on a regular basis. I think he'll be the main goal scorer for them. So my suggestion in that respect is Vito van Cruyff and VVV Venlo.
I think quality-wise, striker-wise, you have to look at Jorgensen and Dolberg to be battling out for the top goal scorer. Can't see anyone at PSV unless to give Sam Lammers a chance to shine. They're going to challenge them. I think Wout Weghorst might be a dark horse. I think AZ will create a lot of chances this season with the wingers they have. Stengs, Alares on the left, then Dos Santos off the bench. I think there's going to be a lot of chances created, and if he can score them, he'll be definitely into double figures. It's just going to be interesting. The teams below them, can Boer actually score goals in the Eredivisie after shining in the second division? He thinks he's going to be the next Vincent Janssen. Is he going to be able to score goals for FC20? And just looking around the division, there isn't very many top class strikers you say are going to bang in goals left, right and centre. You've got Pogba at Sparta. That's it. You got here and Veen have Reza. I think he'll probably have another good season.
Don't forget about Armenteros at Heracles as well. He still hasn't left, has he?
No, he's not. I know he's getting linked to moves to the Middle East, so that might still happen before the end of the season. One interesting one would be NEC Breda have Thierry Ambrose on loan from Manchester City, young French striker. He looks very good, big prospect, and I think if NEC are going to stay up so easily, he's going to score a lot of goals.
Okay.
Just interesting transfer news today. Wesley Sneijder's signed for OGC Nice in France. They've obviously knocked out Ajax in the Champions League. I think they've got Napoli next in the next round. Sneijder getting a chance to shine again in the top league. He's going to put him back into contention for Netherlands, keep him there instead of going to the MLS or China. He's going to a league where it's going to be competitive football. He's going to have the chance to show that he's still a top player. I think that's a really good move for him.
I just wanted to plug for the listeners and the readers the Roland Bergkamp interview which was released last Friday. I found it a very interesting interview. I think Eke Sewelbeek they're going to have a good season. I think he was quite adamant about the team spirit and about the characters inside the squad. And it was nice to get my first interview of 2017-2018 under my belt. And in 2 weeks' time, Kenneth Powell from Young PSV is the next one. So I look forward to that one.
Yeah, James, you've certainly you're going to be pulling out the stops, I think, with these interviews in the coming weeks. So it's always great for the website, isn't it? And I just want to make a final point to listeners that there were some questions about the Dutch national team, and I think we'll plan to talk more about them in a fortnight's time in the build-up to the France match.
Just to give the listeners and the readers a glimpse of what's coming up on the interview side, Kenneth Powell will be my next interview. And then after that, you've got Michael Verkulen, who is the centre-back of Helmond Sport. And then I think I have to wait for confirmation of the other ones in the pipeline. But it's good times ahead, and I hope to get as much depth as possible. And delighted to have almost just 8 interviews in just over a year with names such as Vloet and Duplan and De Lele and Browns and Bergkamp. So it's a good sign for the future, really, I think.
Yeah. Well, thanks, James.
Subscribe to Football-Oranje now.